Hello, everybody. This is Two Nerds Talking, and we're back with another episode, this time about AI and its involvement in the gaming industry. This has been a pretty hot topic of debate for a lot of people, especially since AI has taken over many areas of the art space rather quickly. We see it in movies, we see it in games, we even see many YouTubers use it nowadays. And there's even some really big game developers like the director of Smash Bros. Who believes that AI's involvement in the industry is inevitable. What are your thoughts on that, Alicia?
Uh, so before we jump into that, since we are new here to this platform, let's introduce ourselves. You already introduced me. I'm Alicia, and the other nerd talking with me is Jeremy.
Yes,
So,
sometimes I get eager, but yeah, that's our introduction.
no, it's okay. I get eager too. But yeah, welcome to our channel for the one person out there in the world who's listening. And I hope that you enjoy the content that we're trying to make on this channel.
Right.
So, as far as AI goes, I have a lot of thoughts about this, a lot of hot takes as far as the implementation of AI. As pertaining to what the creator of Smash Bros. Said about AI becoming a thing in video games and it being inevitable.
Yeah, I can read his whole quote if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. And tell me again, what's the name of the creator of Smash Bros?
Um, I don't actually know exactly how to pronounce it. I know his last name is Sakurai. But I'm not sure if I'm doing that correctly or not, but he's
What's
a
his
very
first
legendary
name?
creator, and he's been involved in Smash Bros. Most notably, but he's also been involved in other games. He's going to be involved in the upcoming Kirby Air Riders. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. So what's the full quote? What did he say?
Um, Let me see here. It says, I'm just kind of reading over the quotes here. I make sure that many members of staff can share the same information at the same time, regardless of their job or whether they are a designer or a programmer. Although this takes more time and planning, Sakurai said that in his experience, this approach reduces the risk of information gaps and misunderstandings. Conversely, if I just conveyed my ideals to the producer and they assign work to various other people, then some kind of misunderstanding would occur. Actually, this probably isn't the part. Let me scroll down a little.
I was about to say there's a very long quote about AI.
Yeah, there was one in particular, but I want to get to the part about AI in particular. Okay, here it is. Sakurai concluded that AAA projects and indie games are facing difficult situations. I think it's becoming unsustainable to continue producing large games on the scale that companies currently do, as it requires much work, he said, before suggesting generative AI as a potential tool for helping to solve this problem. The only effective breakthrough I can think of at the moment is generative AI. I think we are getting to the point where AAA studios have to change their way of working by using Gen AI to improve work efficiency. I think we are in an era where only the companies that successfully respond to these changes will be able to survive.
So that's a lot to take in. That's a lot to comment on. I think Sakurai is unfortunately right when it comes to the implementation of AI in the development of video games. He's very much correct when he says that video game development as it stands is becoming it's becoming so bloated and it's becoming so huge, and each AAA video game that is being put out these days is the equivalent of a big budget mainstream Hollywood movie that they put out every year or so. And because the development time for these huge big budget games can last upwards of 4 to 5 years. Um, he is unfortunately correct in that the sustainability of those games will at some point become unstable and will lead to a collapse, and that AI will be implemented in video game production as a way to cut corners and cut efficiency. However, so
Yeah, it's just
I
it's
run
weird. Mm.
I I run on two schools of thought here because I myself am a creator. I run around in artistic circles. I run around in indie circles. I, I'm an author. I write my own books. I do my own art. Um, and I view gaming and video game production as an art form. I think where the issue for me comes into play is that at what point will AI eventually completely take over gaming production? Because you can use AI to cut corners when it comes to like gaming development, but at some point you're going to get addicted to said AI. And AI being a machine is a thing that computers don't get sick. They don't require sick leave. They don't require maternity leave. They don't require pay. They don't require food. They don't require anything like that. So at some point, AI, in terms of video game development, there is a massive risk in allowing AI into the video game space, because then what if it starts taking over outside of these cut corners? Like, what if it starts taking over um, active 3D development of a model, or combat development? What if it takes over the spaces where artists use to animate um, elements, or hair, or combat, or even, heaven forbid, what if AI gets to a point to where we start using it to um, record dialogue?
Yeah,
What if AI starts replacing voice actor?
yeah.
Um,
It's already heavily suspected by some that Hollywood is already doing that.
oh yeah, oh yeah, no, no, don't kid yourself. Hollywood is already using AI in their movie production. They just don't make a big deal about it because AI is still very much hated within like the general public because of the potential of what AI can do, and the fact that it has very strong potential to take over, certain jobs.
Hmm.
So, as a creative, I want to say that I'm very much against AI in the arts.
Right.
You already see it already. It's in when just outside of gaming in general, if you look at like the other spheres of art, like music production, literature, um, art, things like that, AI is basically like a virus. It's like an infection that you see on social media, you see on Amazon, you see on like online retail sites. You see what you think is art,
Mm.
but if you look at it a little closer, it's actually AI generated,
Oh yeah.
and it is destroying the art community as we know it. It's
Yeah.
destroying artists, it's destroying musicians, it's destroying traditional writers like myself.
Hmm.
And I fear that it's going to get to a point to where it will start destroying like the indie video game community. It's going to start destroying the indie film community. So I think we have to be very careful how we implement AI, in our creative spaces. And that was a long paragraph, so I'm going to let you talk for a minute.
Oh no, I think that's exactly right. And it's the same when it comes to just everyday pieces of art. Like for example, if you've been on YouTube for a long time, we can remember a time where videos people made, like parodies and whatnot, they were all made by creative means. Whereas
Yeah,
nowadays, that kind of space is entirely dependent on AI because it's just so much easier. And that's basically the crux of it, that the whole thing is just a combination of laziness and greed. And I'm not saying that I don't get it at all. I know that there is definitely um an appeal there for some people because of how easy it is and just how cost effective it is. For some people, it allows them to do things that they never could do before because they didn't have the funding or they didn't have the talent. But at the other end of the spectrum, when you're watching a movie or you're playing a game or just consuming in any form of art, part of the thing that makes it relatable and engaging is that it was created by another human mind. And when it loses that element and it's created by a computer instead, it loses a layer of validity. I've seen people that try to argue separately from that, but that's just how I feel personally. I know that if it's not made by another human mind, if it's just randomly generated by a computer without thoughts, feelings, or emotions, then I can't really get invested in it in the same way I could actual art. And that's why I think it's a problem. Now, I do think there are smart ways that you could implement AI into game development. Like, for example, you could let AI write the code for games, or you could have AI help to optimize games to run better. You might even be able to have it animate the odd NPC in there. But the problem with that is I don't think that they'll ever actually stop there. I think AI, once it gets to a point where it gets good enough that it can head everything, studios are going to lean on it. So they're not just going to use it as a supplementary tool. They're going to use it as a tool that is meant to envelop everything.
right. You described in better detail kind of what was going through my mind. Um, if if you're a cash-strapped company or you're a large company and you want to try and cut down costs
Mhm,
on a huge AAA game,
mhm,
AI is there to, as you said, maybe write coding and programming. And the about that is, like, if you allow AI to write coding and programming, and then like you implement that coding and programming, and it completely jacks up the game, you're going to have to go back and manually reprogram or recode that game from the ground up on your own.
right.
And if that happens, you've basically just wasted time, literal time and money trying to get AI to do what you want it to do, and it doesn't do what you want it to do because, to your point, it doesn't have the human touch.
Right.
Now, on the flip side of that, what you could do is you could use AI to implement programming and coding as like a template, like have like the basics coding and programming for the game that you want to develop.
Hmm.
And then before you implement that, you go in and like tweak it here and there
Oh yeah.
so that you implement that coding or that programming, then the system that you upload it into or the game that you apply it to can do what you want it to do specifically
Right.
because it has that touch from you as the creator rather than just mimicking what the AI thinks it should do. So there's that way that AI can be implemented in
Mhm.
video game development.
Well, there's also the fact that that might be an issue current day, but that could change to a point to where it's not even a problem very, very quickly. I mean, people forget that we largely started getting these generative AI tools that make AI video and whatnot Those largely became available to the public about 3 or 4 years ago at this point, and when they first came on the scene, they were horrible. Like they could barely make a human face. They messed up hands all the time. And in just a few short years, it's gotten to a point to where they've went from being horrible to producing video that is sometimes it's sometimes hard to tell that it's fake.
Well, it may and it may be not. I've kind of trained myself to actually spot an AI video a mile away.
Mhm.
Um, because
I mean, it's gotten to the point to where I've talking to some people that have actually legitimately gotten scared by AI videos. Like, there's this one
right,
group of people that saw this video. I forget what it's called, but it's where people were fighting with this robot, and this robot like turns on them and rebels on them and starts attacking the humans. And it was an AI video, but people actually thought it was real because that's how good it looked.
good lord. Well, what helps me identify the difference between what an AI video is and what is real life is by how the environment acts and how the people in that video can act. There are certain things about a real world environment and the way that humans naturally react as real people that AI, for all its intelligence, simply cannot mimic. I refer to it as the randomness of the human condition
Hmm.
because I had AI described to me by a coworker of mine. And the way that he described AI was AI is only as intelligent as the people who program it because AI is not a sentient being because it doesn't have a soul, it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have emotions. AI is basically a parrot. It only regurgitates what its programmers feed it. So you don't have the randomness or the spontaneousness of humanity in an AI generated video that you would see in a real world video. And so I've kind of trained myself to look for those little quirks in a video that would tell me, hey, you know, a person wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Or an object doesn't operate this way in the real world, or this, that, and the other thing. So
Mhm.
therefore, it's AI. You can train yourself to spot an AI video.
Mhm.
So
Well, currently, right now, you can, but the point is that it's gone from barely being able to make a face to making a realistic face in
oh yeah,
3 to 4 years. And like, if it has improved as much as it has in a few years, it could very well get to a point to where it's very hard to distinguish it from reality in a few years. That's basically my point.
that's a challenge that I'm willing to set upon AI. We will see. If they can convince me, then I I'll take it seriously.
Yeah.
But as of right now, they cannot. And
Yeah.
see, the thing to your point about AI developing um, environments and people and faces that look like near exact copies of the real thing reminds me so much, going back to the video game industry, reminds me so much of how far technology came uh, when it came to like the PS1 era graphics and character models versus the PS2 graphics and character models versus the PS5 graphics and character models.
Mhm.
Technology has come so far in the gaming industry that we have gone from, you know, PS2 era Cloud, who looks like a Roblox on steroids.
You mean PS1 era?
PS1. Wait, did Final Fantasy VII come out during the PS1 era?
Yeah, the PS1 era.
Why was I thinking he was a PS2 generation?
Final Fantasy X is the one that's a PS2
Oh,
game.
that's right. Okay. I had no idea that Final Fantasy VII was PS1 generation. Anyway, the point still stands.
Hmm.
Um, looking like a Roblox character on steroids when he was first introduced during the PS1 era,
Hmm.
to like being able to see every individual hair on his head
Hmm.
dur- uh, during the PS5 generation is remarkable.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the human touch, ironically enough. It has everything to do with the advancements in technology.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, but it's those advancements in combination with the human touch that have ultimately made it great.
true.
But
True.
yeah, I think that part of it is, kind of like what we talked about in the last video, where, a lot of gamers want everything to be perfect. And, I get wanting things to be perfect, but it's gotten to a point to where there's just certain sectors of the community that are just impossible to please. Like, you'll see
Right.
people, if a game dips from 60 frames to 50 frames, people will be saying it's literally unplayable and stuff. And, like, it's that kind of perfection that makes me think the industry is going to have to lean into AI at some point because it's just getting too much for humans to do on their own. I mean, it's already gotten to a point to where a game takes an entire console generation to develop. If you're talking about a AAA game, if you don't start development at the start of the console's life cycle, there's a very good chance it won't make it to that console because that's how long development has gotten at this point. And I don't
Yeah.
imagine that it's going to get any shorter.
Right. So when you look at the state of gaming or video game development rather, when you look at it from that standpoint, uh there really is no other option for game developers than to implement AI.
Yeah.
Because as you said, game development has gotten absolutely ridiculous. It's
Mhm.
gotten so bloated and it's gotten so massive, and it's really their fault for allowing that to happen. That they've gotten to a point to where it's become unsustainable. The sheer manpower, just like the real human manpower required to develop games that huge, is becoming unsustainable. And at
Yeah.
some point, something is going to have to give. You're either going to have to be forced to slash the production of your video games by half and risk potentially losing the quality of your video game
Mhm.
and thus taking off every single member of the gaming community,
Mhm.
or you're going to have to continue what you're doing but sacrifice some of your inhuman, real life human game developers and implement AI in order to make the production go faster and reduce the cost.
Yeah.
So I think that the gaming industry is kind of at a crossroads with that.
Yeah.
And the gaming industry is going to have to decide what they want to do
Mhm.
as far as AI goes.
Well, I mean, it also has to do with um the fact that a lot of people don't want to accept this, but we don't need the constant progression of graphics. If anything, I think we need to chill on graphics a little bit and let the industry catch up because we've
Right.
already gotten to a point where games basically can look photorealistic in some cases. Um, if you take a dev like Square Enix, for example, there's examples of both in what they're doing. With the Final
Yes.
Fantasy remake, they announced that Part 3 of the Final Fantasy VII remake is still going to run on Unreal Engine 4, even though Unreal Engine 5 is out. And I think that's a fantastic decision because the game looks perfectly fine enough on Unreal Engine 4. There's no reason to halt development by trying to make it Unreal Engine 5. That would just be a disastrous decision. Sticking with Unreal Engine 4 is great. Um, However, with Kingdom Hearts 4, they are using Unreal Engine 5, which tells you why it has taken a lot longer than it needed to. If they had just stuck with Unreal Engine 4, they could have probably reused a lot more Kingdom Hearts 3 assets, and the game would probably be out by now if they had stuck on Unreal Engine 4.
Right, right. And I actually I could be completely wrong in my assessment, but I can see why that they're staying with Unreal Engine 4 for the Final Fantasy VII remake and going with Unreal Engine 5 for Kingdom Hearts 4. But before I delve into that, I just wanted to say that this is going to be a hot take. As far as graphics quality of gaming goes, I honestly think we've reached peak. I legitimately cannot see how graphics quality can extend further than where it's already gone.
Mhm.
I think that graphics in the gaming industry has basically hit an evolutionary wall. I mean, what's gonna be the big draw for the PS6?
Hmm.
Better graphics, okay, and what else? What else? You're gonna have to make me want to buy a PS6, and graphics is not gonna do it. Because if a PS6 can do everything that my PS5 can do, just with a better graphics card, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna buy my PS. I'm not gonna buy a PS6. I'm gonna stick with my PS5
Well, I mean,
because
at some point the industry forces you to, though, because they'll stop producing games for the PS5, and the PS6 will be the only way to play new releases.
yeah, I know, but I mean that's in the future. We don't know yet when the PS6 is going to come out, so that's going to be in the future. But any that's my mindset because I mean I think the games look fine the way they look now.
Hmm.
And I think only within the past couple of years, in all honesty, have the capabilities on the PS5 really truly been able to be implemented in the way that they should have been, or the way that they were designed to. The games
Hmm.
that are coming out now on the PS5 look stunning. They
Hmm.
look the best that I've seen any game look.
Hmm.
And I really don't see how we can make games look better. And I don't really see how we can make games bigger than how they're being made now. I mean, the
Well,
next, like, if you want a better graphics for your PS6, the next step would be, I guess, doing live action recordings.
well, I mean,
Coming
like,
full circle the way they did during the Sega era. Recording live cutscenes. I mean, if you want graphics better than PS5, that's basically what you're going to have to end up doing.
yeah, I mean, like, it's basically gotten to a point where it's as good as it'll ever realistically need to be, and I don't think that you're gonna have significant returns. Like, I mean, the question is, could graphics get better? They probably could at some point, but I think it would be a very diminishing return. And I think there's a difference between graphics like technically being better, technically being more advanced, and looking better. This is something that we went over uh, in the last episode is that, take Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy 16, for example. Final Fantasy 16 obviously has far more advanced graphics than Final Fantasy X, but I think you could easily argue that Final Fantasy X looks better despite that because it's a much more colorful game with a much more expressive art style that's less focused on realism.
Right, right, exactly. As much as everybody screams for a Final Fantasy X remake, I honestly don't want a Final Fantasy X remake.
Oh no.
I think the game looks gorgeous the way that it is now.
Um,
It's a well, not sort of fully 3D environment. I mean, it's as you said, it's colorful. It's just a beautiful game, and I really don't see the need for a remake for Final Fantasy X unless, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, unless they do to Final Fantasy X what they did to Final Fantasy VII and have a reimagining of the game the way that they did Final Fantasy VII. That's the only way that I would, I think, truly appreciate a Final Fantasy X remake.
oh yeah. I agree. Like, I would take that, but I think that before 10, like, before they even think of ever remaking 10, they need to remake 8 and 9 because they need it way worse.
I think it's kind of foregone that, what is it? What did we think was going to get a remake? Was it 9?
Well, there's still rumors going around that 9 is indeed getting a remake. We've even seen NVIDIA leaks that are proving that the game was indeed a thing. Square Enix just hasn't revealed it yet, but they've been releasing a ton of merch around Final Fantasy 9 and stuff, so we can surmise that a reveal should be coming any day now, but it's weird because it hasn't yet.